In the last few hours, royal watchers, journalists, and insiders have been shaken by reports suggesting that King Charles may have quietly set a timeline for stepping away from the throne. While Buckingham Palace has not released a full and detailed confirmation, multiple sources close to royal operations say that internal discussions about abdication have reached a critical stage. The news, which spread rapidly through media and social platforms, came without the usual long build-up or public preparation. For many people across Britain and the Commonwealth, the idea alone was deeply emotional. King Charles waited most of his life to become monarch, and now, only a short time into his reign, the possibility that he may soon step aside feels sudden and unsettling. Outside palace gates, crowds gathered in confusion and concern. Some people held flags and candles, others demanded clarity, and many simply stood in silence. Online, emotions moved fast. Some expressed sympathy for a king under pressure, while others questioned whether this decision was truly his or shaped by forces around him. What made the moment feel even heavier was the lack of detail. The palace statement, described by those who saw it as brief and carefully worded, avoided clear explanations. That silence created space for speculation, and speculation quickly turned into concern. According to royal commentators, abdication is one of the most serious actions a monarch can take. It does not just change who wears the crown. It changes how history remembers a reign. This is why the reports surrounding King Charles struck such a deep nerve. Insiders claim that conversations about timing, succession planning, and duty have been happening behind closed doors for months. What changed, they say, is urgency. Some close to the palace suggest that recent events placed emotional and physical pressure on the king that could no longer be ignored. Though official sources continue to downplay health concerns, people familiar with royal schedules have noticed reduced appearances, shorter engagements, and a growing reliance on aides. None of this proves a medical crisis, but it has raised questions. At the same time, Charles is said to be deeply aware of the state of the monarchy itself. Years of public debate, family disputes, and declining trust have left the institution fragile. Friends of the king describe him as thoughtful and reflective, sometimes burdened by the fear that he may be remembered as a ruler who inherited problems too large to fix. The weight of history, especially the long reign of Queen Elizabeth II, has always followed him. She was a symbol of stability in changing times, and many believe Charles feels the pressure of living in that shadow every day. Reports suggest that this awareness, combined with exhaustion, may have pushed him toward difficult conversations about the future. Behind palace walls, advisors are said to have begun preparing for scenarios that once seemed distant. Succession planning, legal transitions, and ceremonial timelines were reportedly discussed in private meetings involving senior officials and government liaisons. These discussions, according to insiders, were not meant to signal weakness, but readiness. However, when parts of this planning reportedly leaked, it caused shock both inside and outside the royal household. The idea that Prince William could be asked to take on royal authority sooner than expected raised new questions. William has long been seen as the future of the monarchy, but few believed the transition would happen so fast. People close to him say that while he understands his duty, the emotional weight of such a change is enormous. He is not only stepping into a role of leadership, but into a moment of uncertainty. At the same time, attention turned toward Catherine. Known publicly for her calm presence and strength, she has faced her own challenges, which insiders say have required privacy and care. Reports suggest that the stress of a sudden transition could affect her recovery, making the timing even more difficult for the family. This combination of personal strain and public expectation has made the situation feel overwhelming. Adding to the tension is Queen Camilla's quieter role during this period. Observers noticed her absence from certain engagements, which fueled rumors about disagreement or emotional distance. While no official explanation has been offered, people familiar with palace life say that moments like these can strain even the strongest partnerships. All of this has unfolded under intense public attention. The British public, already divided about the monarchy's future, reacted strongly. Older generations expressed sadness, seeing the possible abdication as another sign that a familiar world is fading. Younger voices, however, questioned whether change might bring renewal. Across the Commonwealth, leaders quietly watched developments unfold, aware that any shift in the crown could reopen debates about national identity and independence. What began as a report about one man's possible decision quickly became something much larger. It became a moment where history, family, duty, and uncertainty collided. And as questions continued to grow, many wondered whether this was truly the end of a chapter or the beginning of a deeper transformation that would reshape the monarchy forever. As the days passed and reactions continued to build, attention turned inward, toward the royal family itself. Reports from those close to palace life suggest that this period has been emotionally heavy for everyone involved. King Charles, according to friends and aides, has carried a quiet sense of conflict. On one hand, he has spent a lifetime preparing for the crown, believing deeply in service and responsibility. On the other, he has watched the institution he loves struggle under modern pressures. Insiders describe him as a man torn between duty and realism, aware that leadership sometimes means knowing when to step aside. Some sources claim that he has spoken privately about fear, not fear of losing power, but fear of leaving behind a divided family and an uncertain future. The relationship between Charles and his sons has been central to this emotional storm. William, now potentially closer than ever to the throne, is said to feel conflicted rather than eager. Those around him describe a man who understands the importance of continuity, but worries about the cost. He is a father, a husband, and a public figure, all at once. According to insiders, the idea of stepping into leadership while his wife faces health challenges has weighed heavily on him. Catherine's strength has long been admired, but friends say she, like anyone, has limits. Her reduced public appearances sparked rumors, but those close to her emphasize the importance of privacy during recovery. The pressure of becoming queen sooner than expected, combined with constant public attention, has made this moment especially difficult. Behind closed doors, the family is said to have held private meetings to discuss the path forward. These meetings, described as emotional and tense, focused not just on protocol, but on people. What would the transition mean for the children? How would they cope with sudden changes? Stories circulated of young family members asking simple but heartbreaking questions, reminders that behind royal titles are real relationships. Amid this tension, Prince Harry's name returned to the conversation. Though living far from royal life, his connection to these events could not be ignored. Reports suggest that Harry made a quiet visit to the UK around this time, seeking a private moment with his father. While details remain unconfirmed, sources claim the meeting was emotional and deeply personal. Harry is said to have brought a message rooted in family memory rather than politics, reminding Charles of love, loss, and unfinished healing. Some even suggest that the message included words connected to Princess Diana's hopes for reconciliation. Whether fully true or not, the idea resonated strongly with the public. Diana remains a powerful symbol, and her legacy continues to shape how people view the royal family's struggles. Observers noted that Meghan remained in the United States, a choice that sparked debate. Some saw it as distance, others as respect for a private family moment. Whatever the reason, Harry's presence alone shifted the tone of the story. It reframed the situation not just as a constitutional issue, but as a family crisis unfolding under global attention. Meanwhile, palace staff and advisors faced their own divisions. Reports describe two quiet camps forming. One group, loyal to Charles, believed the transition should be slow and respectful, giving him space to define his own ending. Another group, focused on stability and public confidence, pushed for speed and clarity. These internal differences created tension behind the scenes, with schedules changing and communications carefully managed. Matters became even more complex when government figures were drawn into discussions. According to insiders, meetings between royal representatives and political leaders were serious and, at times, strained. The government's role in ensuring continuity added another layer of pressure. Abroad, Commonwealth leaders watched closely. For some nations, this moment reopened long-standing conversations about their relationship with the crown. The possible abdication of a monarch so soon after taking the throne felt symbolic, even unsettling. Social media reflected this emotional mix. Tributes to Charles appeared alongside criticism and debate. Some praised his honesty and humanity, while others demanded transparency. The generational divide became clear. Younger voices called for reform and openness, while older supporters mourned the loss of tradition. In the midst of this public storm, reports emerged of King Charles watching reactions quietly, without comment. A man who had spent decades preparing for leadership now faced judgment, sympathy, and speculation all at once. According to those close to him, this period was not about politics, but reflection. He reportedly asked himself what legacy truly means. Is it holding on at all costs, or knowing when to let go for the greater good? As the family navigated grief, duty, and uncertainty, one truth became clear. This was no longer just a story about abdication. It was about a family confronting its past, a nation questioning its future, and an institution facing the limits of tradition in a modern world. As the possibility of abdication moved closer to reality, attention turned to what might come next. Reports suggest that Prince William has begun preparing for a role he always knew would come, but never expected so soon. Friends describe him as serious, thoughtful, and deeply aware of the responsibility ahead. Unlike moments of celebration seen in past transitions, this one feels heavy. The monarchy, once built on the idea of permanence, now appears vulnerable. William's task, according to analysts, would not simply be to inherit a crown, but to restore trust. Catherine's absence from public view continued to fuel concern. Insiders stress that health and well-being must come before symbolism, yet the silence left space for rumors. At the same time, Queen Camilla's future role became less clear. Reports suggest she may step back from influence, a move that some see as painful given her years of loyalty. Palace insiders describe mixed emotions, from gratitude to quiet hurt. As these personal shifts unfolded, whispers of internal power struggles emerged. Senior advisors, traditionalists, and reform-minded voices reportedly clashed over how the monarchy should look in the years ahead. Some pushed for modernization and transparency, while others feared losing the mystique that defines royal identity. In the background, security planning increased. Large public reactions, protests, and heightened emotions required careful preparation. This was no longer just a ceremonial transition. It was a moment of national sensitivity. Then came reports of a final, deeply symbolic act by King Charles. According to sources, he prepared a private document outlining his hopes for the future. While details remain confidential, those who have spoken about it describe a message focused on protection, honesty, and change. Rather than commands, the words were said to express humility and concern. One phrase, reportedly written in his own hand, captured attention. A call to protect the future, even from the mistakes of the past. Whether fully accurate or not, the idea resonated. It suggested a king aware of the monarchy's flaws and hopeful for its growth. As Charles prepared for a farewell speech, anticipation grew. Observers expected formality, but what reportedly emerged was something more personal. His words, according to those who watched, focused on humanity rather than power. He spoke of service, regret, and love. He acknowledged his sons not as heirs, but as people. He honored Queen Elizabeth not just as a ruler, but as a guide. And he ended with a reminder that love should never be delayed. The speech, described as quiet and emotional, left many viewers moved. It reframed abdication not as failure, but as reflection. Across the nation, reactions softened. Critics paused. Supporters mourned, and many simply listened. As the transition moved forward, questions remained unanswered. Could William lead in his own way? Would Catherine regain strength away from the spotlight? Could the family heal old wounds? And perhaps most importantly, could the monarchy adapt without losing itself? These questions hung in the air as the story continued to unfold. The possible abdication of King Charles became more than a news event. It became a mirror, reflecting the challenges of tradition in a changing world. Whatever happens next, one truth is clear. This moment will be remembered not only for who stepped down or who stepped up, but for what it revealed about leadership, family, and the cost of silence. The crown may change hands, but the lessons of this moment will echo far beyond the palace walls. And as history turns another page, the world watches, waiting to see whether the monarchy can find balance between past and future, duty and humanity, power and compassion. As the transition moved closer, the atmosphere around the palace grew heavier and more uncertain. According to people familiar with royal operations, the days following King Charles's emotional farewell were marked by quiet tension rather than celebration. There were no loud rehearsals, no joyful announcements, and no sense of triumph. Instead, there was caution. Every step was measured, every word carefully chosen. Prince William, now standing on the edge of kingship, was described as focused but visibly burdened. Those close to him say he began each day earlier than usual, meeting advisors, reading reports, and asking difficult questions about public trust, security, and unity. He was not interested in repeating the past. He wanted to understand why faith in the monarchy had weakened, and whether it could truly be repaired. Yet, even as he prepared, obstacles continued to rise. Catherine's absence became impossible to ignore. With no official explanation beyond requests for privacy, rumors spread faster than facts. Some worried about her health, others questioned whether the pressure had simply become too much. Insiders insist that she remained deeply involved behind the scenes, offering guidance and support when she could. But her physical withdrawal from public life changed the image of stability the monarchy had long relied on. William, caught between duty and concern for his wife, faced an impossible balance. He was expected to appear strong, decisive, and ready, while privately managing fear and uncertainty. Meanwhile, Queen Camilla's position remained unclear. Sources say she struggled with the sudden shift from central support figure to a quieter, more distant role. For years, she had stood beside Charles through public criticism and private challenges. Now, with his departure, she found herself navigating a future that no longer had a clear place for her voice. Some say she accepted this with grace. Others suggest deep hurt. Either way, her reduced visibility added another layer of complexity to an already fragile moment. Inside the palace, divisions among staff became harder to hide. Older advisors, shaped by tradition, pushed for familiar ceremonies and strict protocol, believing that structure would calm public fear. Younger advisors argued that the world had changed and that transparency and openness were no longer optional. Meetings reportedly stretched late into the night, with disagreements over everything from language in public statements to seating arrangements at upcoming events. Even small decisions felt symbolic. At the same time, security concerns increased. With public emotions running high, officials prepared for protests, vigils, and unexpected gatherings. The transition was no longer just a royal matter. It had become a national moment of reflection and tension. Police presence increased around key locations, not because of specific threats, but because uncertainty itself can create risk. Across Britain, conversations continued in homes, pubs, and workplaces. For some, William represented hope, a chance for renewal and honesty. For others, the rapid change felt unsettling, another sign that tradition was fading too quickly. Across the Commonwealth, leaders quietly reassessed their positions. Some nations viewed the moment as a chance to redefine their relationship with the crown, while others waited cautiously, unwilling to act until the future became clearer. Amid all this, reports emerged of a private effort by William to reach out beyond palace walls.